Good morning. So, a YouTube commenter, Ulysses Pellegrino, I believe it was, wanted me to come in and do some simple flights just to compare some of the plane responses and how they handle in the new update, because they're supposedly made changes to the physics system and things are supposed to be a little more balanced, stable, or functional. Look at all those POIs that are probably not worth looking at. Alright, so interesting, there's something in Fort Worth. Oh, interesting. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue the flight that I did previously. I'm going to take off. I know I'm not going to do this 100% right, but that's okay. From Addison, and I am going to come in on Love. Short little flight, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to pick a good time of the day here where we have some sunlight so we can see what's happening. I'm going to come into the wind, make sure that it's set. Okay, maybe not. Pretty decently from the north. I'm going to drop the speed down. I'm going to gust it from the same area. Turn the frequency way up to 60 seconds and the speed way down. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this in the planes that I know. I'm not going to fly every single airplane, I just don't have the time to go through all of that. But I have flown a handful of these planes and I think I can do a decent comparison in the ones I've flown. Actually, let's start in the Cub, work our way up from slow to high. I'm not going to commentate every moment of the entire flight. Just going to take forever. I'm just going to fly through and kind of give a little bit of the thoughts after the landing of each plane for how they fly. So that's what we'll do. Again, I am using an Xbox 360 controller. I only have left rudder mapped to the single functioning axis. I did email Microsoft again and they just gave me the canned message of we're working on it diligently, so they're doing nothing about it. But that is my control setup. You've seen it in the other videos. Nothing's really changed, nothing's adapted. I'm just going to do the standard flight. I may try to do some of these from the inside, but I think from the outside, the main reason I'm doing these videos from the outside is partly so that I can gauge the flight control issues against the ground, because I can see the wing movements a lot easier from the outside. But it also gives you a good idea of what the plane's doing, because you can see my control inputs hitting the ailerons on the side, the elevators. You can see the flaps. You can see what I'm doing visually on the outside instead of interior flights where you can't really see anything unless I look at it specifically. So I will probably continue to do this set of flights from the outside. I'll pop in once in a while so you can see my airspeed, things like that, since I don't show my full widescreen resolution. But I think that's a fair way for you to see how much input or lack thereof I am putting on the control surfaces to try and fight the plane to control itself. And that's really the best way to try and articulate what's happening, better than me just rambling on, because I do get kind of long-winded. I'm really curious to see if they have made any changes to the citation and the longitude, but we'll see. So I will probably only do takeoff and post takeoff at regular speed. I will fast forward through the flight, and once we're kind of locked in on approach, I will go back to regular speed so you get an idea of how the planes control actually when they're doing something. In the air, things to pay attention to, similar to when I did the previous video over whatever dam that was on the Grand Canyon. Just look at how smooth and steady the plane is, because flying the Cub through the canyon, flying this very plane over the canyon heading into it, there was so little that I actually had to do for the plane to get it to function right. It just worked, and that's what made it such a joy to fly and operate, because I didn't have to mess with anything. It just did its job and was flyable, and that's all that I really need. Now here, of course, I've got to deal with torque steer on the engine. Normally I would be able to feather there you go, just a little bit of feathering on the rudder. Let's close that, and let's definitely trim down a bit here so that we can get up and around. I'm still at full throttle. We will slow down a little bit here in a minute. gonna trim back down to not super crazy here, but I don't need the plane going nuts. You can see that they finally fixed the buildings here at Addison compared to the last time I was here. This is much more realistic. I don't see the cars driving through what should be a tunnel over the runway anymore. And they have certainly fixed the buildings to not be quite so insane compared to the reality of things. So it looks a lot better. I think I see some buildings that are still not quite right, but this is much better. As I head over Inwood down by the tollway. Alright, so we're at a pretty decent altitude here. Let's zip off.
X-ray Golf Sierra exit runway when able. Raptors X-ray Golf Sierra contact ground on 121.75.
Okay, so
121.75 Raptors X-ray Golf Sierra.
Yeah, be quiet. So the Cub Crafter, absolute pleasure to fly. I freehanded the entire flight. There was smooth sailing. The wings moved just a little bit in the slight breeze of air movement. Pure joy and pleasure. That's probably the best landing I've ever had in any airplane. It wasn't perfect by any means. I overflared. Again, I'm so used to compensating for the plane falling out of the sky and all these other things that I have no skill anymore. But that was a fun flight. That was a good little run. So Cub Crafter, absolutely perfect handling. Let's move on to the next plane.
Addison Tower, Cessna Alpha Sierra,
All right.
X-ray Golf Sierra Alpha ready for
So
departure to the
we are in the
southern
Cessna 172 with the Garmin glass cockpit. My VFR map never wants to load on the correct screen here. I don't get it. Let's get this show on the road. Takes a bit to get this sucker moving before airspeed comes alive. There we go. It seems it's torquing in the other way, so hopefully the wind isn't a factor here. In fact, before we get airborne, let's just double check that I did turn off the weather. I did not. That would be a problem. Okay, so let's turn the frequency. speed down. Weather, whatever, close enough. Okay. Now let's make sure what I just set stuck. It did. And let's see if the game freaks out. Yep, it does. Always has a bit of a conniption. Okay. Flaps are up. Speed is going decently. Let's get the trims back in line. I think I trimmed my rudder. Okay, rudder trim should be off now. Yep. And we're climbing again. Okay, so.
Technical, Sierra Alpha, continue for south departure. I will contact you next when you leave my airspace.
Yes, ma'am.
Addison Tower, Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Alpha, continue for south departure.
Okay, we are going to bank a bit left here. Zip over the toll road. Okay, there's the tollway. We're heading over to US 75 on our left, which will connect us with downtown. You can see Addison Tower, or not Addison Tower, Love Tower on the far right of the screen. Still seem to be banking a bit to the right. I guess my rudder trims were... no, they weren't set. Could still be something from the wind, but again, the plane is stable. Alright, let's go ahead and zip on forward. Alright, so we're on approach. Some of that jerky motion was my thumb having to make some adjustments on the stick. Not necessarily wind or the plane.
Cessna Golf Sierra Alpha exit runway when able. Cessna Golf Sierra Alpha contact ground on 121.75.
121.75 Cessna Golf Sierra Alpha.
Somebody executed a missed approach. From Midway. Anyway. So, Cessna 172, another plane that's a pleasure to fly. I had some issues on takeoff. I think that's just some issues with flaps and the torque going the wrong way, so the plane was pulling in a direction I didn't have finite rudder control like I did with the Cub. And then when I was trying to hit the trims, I inadvertently trimmed my rudder, which caused the plane to pitch one direction. It took me a minute to get that kind of balanced out. But once that was done, again, the plane flew beautifully. No real problems, no real concerns. It was just another great little flight. Landing, I came in a little high and had to bleed off some altitude. But overall, once I got around the 500-foot mark, things were dialed in a little bit. What I was having some issues with, as you might have seen, was the plane was dipping and then jerking up and dipping and jerking up. That seemed to be a problem with my controller, where I was riding just the edge of the dead zone, so the stick would go into dead zone and the plane would pull back up too hard, and then I would try to push and feather it to get the nose back down just to smooth them out. Ended up kind of keeping on track, but not perfect, and so I ended up just switching to lowering the throttle a little more and letting the plane just sink based on throttle and speed, which seemed to work. And then I was able to do a pretty decent flare. Ended up pulling it a little bit too soon and ended up dropping a little bit hard, but on the whole, another great plane that handled beautifully as expected, and another thorough pleasure to fly. So let's go back to the menu and try another plane.
Addison Tower, Beechcraft, Whiskey, India, November, Golf, Sierra 0105 at runway 15
Beechcraft, we are in. Flaps are set. I'm going to go ahead and trim nose down a little more. I did make sure that I set the weather correctly this time, so wind should not be a factor. Let's go ahead and take the parking brake off and throttle this sucker up. Oops, let's put the parking brake back on. Okay. Let's see which direction this plane pulls, or if we can track true and get airborne. Only 2 settings of flaps. A little bit of a right pull. Let's gently try to compensate here. You can see the plane starting to lift. Should be airborne here in a moment. Okay, come on, come on, come on. There we go, we are airborne. Whoa, where are you going, airplane? You are getting away from me here. Whoa. Okay, this is a terrifying experience. Oh my goodness. Get altitude. What are you doing, Mr. Plane? Okay, to heck with flying correctly. Oh my goodness. Alright, I've cut throttle, I've pulled the trims back. What is this thing doing? Holy cow. She just wants to roll. Okay, come on, where's my trims? Why are you rolling? Whoa! Oh my gosh, what the heck?
Addison Tower, Beechcraft, Whiskey, India, November, Golf, Sierra 0105.
I set you to not have wind. I know I did. Oh my gosh. I specifically went into those settings and changed it. And look at this thing. It's just rocking. Oh my gosh. I've had to cut my engines way down. This plane just will not stay flying straight. It just rolls. And now I'm not even touching the controls. I'm just... What? I'm not touching the controls. What is it doing? What is it? Oh my gosh. Okay. Do not fly that airplane for any reason. It is completely broken. Not only did I set those wind settings, I went in and made sure that I set those wind layer settings. Even with those basic wind layer settings and the fact that I turned them off a second time, why did that plane completely pitch to the right and be unrecoverable? That is, no, that's just absurd. Okay, do not fly that airplane for any reason. It is just not worth it. So I'm going to record me coming in here yet again. Speed off. Frequency maxed. Speed off. See? It's set. Airplane. King Air. Avoid at all costs. Let's try the Baron G. Double check my wind layer. Okay. Fool me once. Alright, let's see what happens this time.
Addison Tower,
Alright.
Beechcraft Alpha, Sierra, X-ray Golf, Sierra,
So the
and
previous
runway 15
aircraft,
for takeoff, south departure.
at no point did I feel like I had any aspect of control on the plane or what it was doing. Let's see if this one is any better. See? You saw me set the wind. You saw that it was still there. And the game still put in its own wind settings. So weather controls are still messed up. Does that account for what broke last round? No. Let's see what this little thing does. Hopefully I won't just completely be out of control the moment I'm off the ground. This one pulls a different direction, so I'm not going to have as much control on it. Okay, we're airborne. Ooh, rudder, rudder. Gear up, keeping flaps for a minute. Let's get some altitude. This thing is very twitchy. Flaps off. Trimming down. Okay. Again, I feel like I'm being blown by an invisible wind that is way too strong. Alright, let's see if I can get my trims to balance out a little bit here. I need to throttle way down. Okay, now we're going up too high on trims. Down to 4. Alright, now we're a little more stable. Sinking just a little bit here. As we fly over 635. Okay, nose can't figure out if it's going to drop or climb, so let's put some upward trim back in. If you notice, this thing just, it wants to roll and pitch. I think I finally got the pitch okay. Trims are a little off, but it just wants to roll like crazy. Like there is zero stability in this plane. It's not as bad as the previous one, but again, I'm having to fight to keep this plane doing what I want it to do.
Sierra, X-ray Golf, Sierra is 5 miles northeast of Alpha to land.
Beechcraft Alpha, Sierra, X-ray Golf, Sierra Tower. Fly left downwind, runway 31 right. Altimeter 29 or decimal 9 or 2 and 334 and 3.
Fly left traffic, runway 31 right, Beechcraft X-ray Golf, Sierra.
Beechcraft X-ray Golf, Sierra cleared to land, runway 31 right. Wind 334 and 3.
The first two planes, the 172 and the Cub, I could basically take my hands off the controls and let the plane fly once I pointed it in a direction. The only thing I really had to do was manage the trim a little bit.
Please acknowledge.
Clear to land, runway 31 right, Beechcraft, X-ray Golf, Sierra.
In those first two planes, it was mostly hands off the entire time for me. The King Air, which I think I just flew a moment ago, this is a Bonanza or something, I don't remember, or a Baron. These planes just want to roll and flip like I'm hands off right now. This is no control from me. No control, no control, no control, no control, no control from me whatsoever. No control. Now control. To get it to peel back around and get some semblance of any stability back in the plane, I feel like I'm having to fight this thing 100% of every moment in order to do anything with it. It is a brutal airplane to try and fly. It is not fun in any way. Because I've constantly got to fight the aircraft to do anything that I would like it to do. Okay, we finally got the throttles down a little bit. Let's get the altitude down, flaps to land. Alright, now I gotta fight the pitch again, because this thing just wants to go all over the place. We are way low on speed, so I gotta throttle up a little more than I've had to in other aircraft. We're holding 110 knots and sinking quickly. Gear is down, that is good. Why are you rolling? Angle up a bit. We're sinking a bit too fast. This is like flying one of the Cessna jets that just makes no sense what it's doing. Okay, now I feel like I'm somewhat in control. Rough landing. Skid off the runway.
Beechcraft X-ray Golf Sierra contact ground on 121.75.
Okay. Alright. Let's get back to the main menu. That's another plane I wouldn't go near with a 10-foot pole.
Addison Tower Extra Alpha Sierra
Alright.
X-ray Golf Sierra ready at runway 15 south departure.
So, the extra. Don't know what just happened there. Why did the plane suddenly pitch off to the left? Look at that. I am full rudder and barely tracking straight. What the? Is this? I don't think that's how a rudder handles. Okay, let's pitch this thing down so I can try to handle.
X-ray Golf Sierra continue for south departure.
Oh my gosh, this plane does not handle at all. No. Quit the climbing. Okay, we're gonna slow way down. Come on, plane, get your nose down. So normally in an extra, they can roll very quickly. This takes forever to get up to speed, and then it just keeps rolling. And then, like, I pull back and insta-stall. My gosh. I do not feel like I am properly in control of the plane, but you can see that I'm not rolling really ridiculously. Let's see. I deleted the wind layer in the menus this time, but there is wind. If you compare this flight to the last two with the King Air and the Baron, where the plane was completely out of control, I'm flying this plane and it seems completely impervious to the wind effect. If I do a barrel roll, I mean, I should be able to release the stick and the plane just flattens out. I've been to numerous air shows watching these planes fly and do their tricks and all that stuff, and none of what I have encountered in flying this thing here in the short few minutes I've been flying it matches the reality that I've seen A, in the real world, and B, in previous flight simulators playing this. I mean, it should be a quick snap move. These planes are highly maneuverable. This plane feels sluggish and heavy. And I shouldn't see such jerky snappiness out of the elevator.
Addison Tower Extra Alpha Sierra
Depressing.
X-ray Golf Sierra frequency change. Tower Extra Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra is 5 miles.
But the fact that,
northeast
like,
without
right
delay.
now, I'm hands off. No controls. No controls. Gonna slightly recorrect myself to be level. No controls. No controls. No controls. Pitching a little bit, not pitching, rolling a little bit to the left.
left downwind runway
Now I've
31 right,
corrected.
extra and X-ray Golf Sierra.
All that normally, and you can see that is likely because of the wind layer. So if I delete the wind, is the plane still going to pretend like it's going to roll off to that side, or is it just going to continue to track? Yes, it is still going to pretend like there's a wind blowing me off course to the side. So once again, wind effects are not correctly applied to the airplanes. Let's zip ahead to the landing in this plane because I can actually fly this stupid thing. Alright, so I'm fighting with the elevators on this plane. For normal flying, the ailerons are not too bad. I can manage to keep things, for the most part, under control. It seems random when it decides to do a quick jerky motion like these short ones are me not really pulling full stick on them, and it seems to do very jerky, quick, smooth maneuvers and then stop immediately, which is what I would expect out of the extra. It's when I go full stick, that's when it seems to do the slow, sluggish turning maneuver, which makes doing these finite approach maneuvers a little more difficult because it does such a jerky job of it that makes any motion have to be very committed to and undone, which is, again, very odd. I would not have expected that behavior out of this type of a plane in this way. Because I have no flaps, I'm coming in a little hot. I'm going to slow down now. I'm still going to be going way too fast, but I want to be able to flare if I can get control over my wings. Whoa, lag. Oof, lagged out at the worst moment on the approach there. Alright, let's slow it down. Not gonna make that exit. Tails down, let's turn hard and get off the runway. Alright, so the extra's not a great flying experience, but it is doable. You can have some fun in it. Let's see what's next. Alright, so again, just to prove that I'm not insane here, I've once again deleted the wind layer and setting up my flight in the TBM. Let's see if it's there when we load in. Alright. Now I'm nervous how my friend the TBM here is going to handle. Very nervous on how this sucker's gonna do. Okay, you saw a moment ago in the menu, I deleted the wind layer and it's still back, so obviously things are amiss. Let's let this sucker get up to speed. We're starting to rotate, and we are airborne. Keeping flaps going while we gain our airspeed. Raising flaps to bring the nose back down. Keeping those up for a steady climb. Okay, we are twitchy, not liking that. Dropping the trims forward heavily. Potentially a bit too much. Let's throttle back to 92%. There we go, nose slowing down. Do some more downward trim because we're climbing again. Okay, I need to bring the nose down. We are way up. Holy cow, plane nose down.
Addison Tower, Dr. Alpha Sierra,
Thank you.
Sierra Alpha frequency change.
Now we're talking.
Dr. Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra Alpha is 6 miles northeast of Alpha to land.
Okay, throttling down to 70%. Nose is climbing like crazy again. I do not need the altitude. Most of this, though, as far as the left or right, I've made minor corrections, nothing major. The biggest thing I'm fighting with is my elevation here. I'm gonna have to throttle down because we've got to nose down to get some altitude off this plane. But again, for the most part, I'm flying pretty well straight. I'm bouncing a little bit in some wind, as I would expect, but on the whole, just a couple minor corrections like the smaller Cessnas and stuff, and the rest of this flight is doing what I would expect. So let's zip ahead to approach. Alright, so I'm on approach. I'm coming in a bit fast, so I'm bleeding some speed. Flaps caused my plane to suck skyward a little bit, so that's a bit of a problem I need to deal with, which I'm correcting now for the most part. Overall, to this moment, the plane has been fairly decently under my control. I've had to deal with some elevator trim issues. We're still moving a bit fast, so I've just dropped down to 36% on the engines, and when I hit full flaps to land here in a moment, I'm going to have to throttle back up. But for the most part, this plane is doing decent thus far. Putting flaps to land, throttling back up to 40%. Whoa! Plane is angling high, and we are stalling. Come on, plane. There we go. Oof. Okay, engine speed up. We are at 90 knots right now, which is great landing speed, but 50% engine thrust is the only thing keeping me airborne right now. 88, 87 knots, so we're doing great speed-wise, but I had not wanted that level of a flare and stall. Okay, let's start losing some of the thrust, prepare for a flare, cutting my engine. Nose up, nose up, nose up, don't lag, don't lag, don't lag. Oh, I pulled back just a bit too much, but a decent landing. Thrust reverse. Alright, TBM. Wholly recommended as far as the fastest prop plane that you can fly correctly. It still has a bit of a learning curve, but you can do it. That plane was great. That was good fun. Let's see what's next. Alright. We are in the good old CJ4. Let's throttle up and see what we get. That is a very annoying issue that stupid thing consistently will not stay on the right side. Alright, jet, let's get airborne here. We have a bit of a pull to the right. Ah, yes, that is... Even though I delete the wind layer, it still wants to do its own thing here. Airborne, gear up. Okay, trimming nose down. Flaps off, and throttle down. Whoa, plane getting hit by a hard gust of invisible wind. We are climbing extremely fast. Let's get those trims down. We're throttling way down. Get the freaking nose down. Oh my gosh. Okay. Are we climbing? Yes. Alright, let's get this nose back down. Okay. We're hitting overspeed because of that ridiculousness. We're at 50 knots. So this is the problem with trying to freehand all this. Yes, 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 I know. Fine, we'll cut the engines. Which is going to wreak havoc on everything else, but it's the only way. I'm at -5 on my trims. I'm getting FPS stutters right and left. The plane's being buffeted by invisible winds. All the same garbage that we've had since I started making videos with these planes. Not boding well for the longitude when I get to it. Okay, -3. Let's see if I can get the nose to come up a little bit. Nope, nose is diving still. Alright, let's see if I can get something happening here. Nose up, 0%. Can I get the nose to climb, please? Nope. Alright, I'm going to have to freehand the entire thing. Just such a bad experience. Alright, we need to begin our turn. I'm going to go +2. I'm at 23 on throttle. I'm going to come down to 18. I'm going to need this whole run up here just to bleed all the stinking speed off. Should have gone to executive down there south of town. We are too low, too fast, and too out of control. Okay, let's gear out. Oh my gosh, plane.
Clear to land runway
Alright.
31 right, Cessna X-ray Golf Sierra.
Ah, that was absurd. Alright, so the flaps and gear and cut of throttle really slowed us down. We're at 181 knots right now. And slowing. I'm going to have to throttle up a bit here in order to maintain enough airspeed, since I'm well within the white stall and this plane really wants to tip hard now. Get some positive trim here. Yeah, I should not be at 500 right now. We are way low. And I just have zero control over this airplane, it feels like. Okay, I need thrust. Thrust, please. The plane is just bleeding airspeed. 164. Alright, now we're getting speed. Flaps to land. 50% on engines. We're still dropping speed ridiculously fast. 146 knots and dropping. Okay, there we go. I seem to have slowed the speed loss a bit here. Zero control over this airplane. We're being buffeted by invisible winds. 60% throttle just to get myself here. No. Maintain control. Maintain it. Maintain it. Come on. Come on, throttle. There. Nope, too hard. Brutal. Absolutely unbelievable. So, terrifying experience, brutally difficult, invisible winds. I deleted the wind layer. Out of control, not recommended. Oops. Let's go back to the main menu. So the final flight that I'm going to do in this current run is of the Cessna Longitude, of course. I have once again deleted the wind layer, so again, I just want to prove that I am doing that. I don't know why the game continues, oops, to think that is what I want to deal with. Addison, we're going to do 15. Departure. Wind layer is still gone. We're in the longitude. Let's fly. Now, you saw how bad the CJ4 was, and that's the plane that I can somewhat control. So get ready for just pure terrifying insanity, even more so than the previous one. I need to remember to delete the wind layer that will magically reappear as soon as I get in, but yeah, don't have high hopes for this. Who's ready for ridiculousness? Let's delete the wind layer yet again. Doesn't matter, it's still gonna buffet me all over the runway. Let my view stabilize. Alright, so I need to balance my trims a little bit before we go. I think 3 was what worked last time, but I'm not going to get that good. Here we go.
Addison Tower, Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra, continue for self-departure.
Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra, you are leaving my airspace. Frequency change approved.
Addison Tower, Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra, frequency change. Tower Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra is 5 miles northeast with Alpha to land.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Tower. Make left traffic runway 31 right. Altimeter 29.9 wind calm.
Fly left traffic runway 31 right Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra.
My gosh, the FPS dip on this one is ridiculous. I'm going way fast. I've got my engines at 38%. I'm still holding 300 knots. I'm going to dip to the first set of flaps here. Trim back down and get my turn started. Need to get my gear down. There it goes, but I'm turning too sharply. Okay, that's definitely bleeding some speed off. That is good. Some drag. Alright, we're a bit high. We're way fast. Let's get the next set of flaps out. Okay, let's get some throttle back in this because I'm bleeding speed. Come around, plane turn. Alright, there we go. Okay, we're at 204 knots. Way too high. Airplane is going up. I need to trim down. I need to continue my throttle down. Okay, now the nose is going down way too fast. Uh-oh. Whoa, why do I have no control over the plane again? We're going full flaps right now. Okay, there's the thrust I need. Whoa, plane, why are you getting hit with wind?
500.
Oh my gosh, I have zero control over this plane. It's like flying a brick. Okay, we are definitely overshooting. Whoa, 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 wing, get back here. No, 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 no. Okay, oh, bad time for lag. Initiate flare, too much flare. Gentle, gentle. Not gentle.
Cessna X-ray Golf Sierra exit runway.
Terrifying. Alright. Let's go to menu and have a bit of a discussion. Okay, guys. Okay. So, we flew a number of airplanes today, starting with the Cub, right here, Cub Crafter. Fabulous experience, behaved exactly like I would expect it to. Weather, wind settings, they seem to apply perfectly, and the plane managed to fly exactly as I expected it to. Next plane was the Cessna 172 Skyhawk G1000, exactly like the Cub Crafter, flew exactly like I would expected it to. I had a few control issues on my part, nothing on the plane's part. It worked like I expected it to, the weather conditions seemed to apply like they should, and the plane flew beautifully. Next up was the King Air. Absolute garbage plane, zero control, impacted by weather, wind conditions that I did not have set. Felt like I was flying in a completely different game, and I crashed. Next up was the Baron. Again, out of control, very difficult to handle, felt like the different flight model, did not have control, managed to survive, but it was very rough. Next up was the Extra. Plane has no flaps. I had a couple control issues. Felt like something weird happened on the ground where the rudder just kind of got all out of wonky whack and I got screwed up. But again, once in the air and once things were stable, the plane flew for the most part as expected. Not a great experience, but it was passable and it is a usable plane, though again, it's not flying like an Extra would because it's not a maneuverable plane in the right way. TBM 930. Flew pretty much as I expected it to, seemed to be slightly impacted by some of the wind that was non-existent, but on the whole, flew like I anticipated, was a decent flying experience, and I was able to land and enjoy it. Recommended. Next up, we moved back on to the CJ4 down here. Very difficult to fly, impacted by invisible weather, virtually uncontrollable, and felt like a completely different flight model. Longitude, even worse than the Citation, though the experience in the Citation helped me get my trims preset a little better so I was able to get pitch control a little faster, but roll was all over the place. What do I think of this physics model? It feels like each plane handles within the air completely differently, and I'm sorry, the density of air does not change in this situation. I'm flying at the same airport, to the same airport, in the same weather conditions, in the same altitude. Nothing is changing except the aircraft, yet every single aircraft, to a degree, felt slightly different. Now, the 172, the Cub Crafter, and the TBM, they felt like they were flying in the same flight model, whereas the King Air, the Baron, and the two Citations felt completely different, and the Extra also felt different, where low subtle maneuvering changes on the Extra made the plane snap and stop like I would expect the Extra to. High, full aileron utilization maneuvers felt slow, sluggish, and incorrect. So whatever they've done, it's not right. And to be brutally honest, flying aircraft in Grand Theft Auto 5 feels better than it does in Flight Simulator, with the exception of the Skyhawk and the Cub Crafter. Those two handled beautifully. The TBM had some issues, but it was a very good experience. But the Cub Crafter and the Skyhawk down here, oops, right here, they felt like they flew like they should. They felt like classic Flight Simulator where they handled like they should. They were expected. You could handle the aircraft. Even in some of the weather situations, you can handle the aircraft and maneuver them and fly them without a problem. Everything else felt wrong. So I stand by my statement that Grand Theft Auto 5 has a better Flight Simulator experience than this, and that is an arcade-style game. But it manages to give me a better flying experience than this game. So that's my real criticism for you devs on this. Cut the content upgrades, fix your crap. This game is broken at a core level, where airplanes are impacted by invisible weather. Weather can't be deleted. Weather settings are not applied correctly, and airplanes do not move through the air in the same way that other airplanes do. And I'm not talking aerodynamically. I'm talking specific control and handling. These planes are bouncing through turbulent air uncontrollably, whereas another plane is flying through it like butter. Something is wrong, and it needs to be fixed because you're killing this game. So, thank you guys for watching. Thank you to Ulysses for the suggestion. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.